Dear listeners, welcome to the sixth story in the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes, The Adventure of the Reigate Squires, also known as the Reigate Puzzle. This is a brilliant, fast-paced, and highly satisfying case that showcases Sherlock Holmes at the height of his deductive genius. It is a tale of two brutal crimes in a quiet English village, a burglary and a cold-blooded murder, that at first appear completely unrelated. Yet through the smallest scraps of evidence, Holmes unravels a clever and ruthless conspiracy. Narrated by Dr. John H. Watson, this adventure takes us from the quiet recovery of Holmes after illness to the beautiful but deadly countryside of Surrey. From a torn fragment of paper to footprints in the garden and a dramatic confrontation, every curious clue, every suspicious glance, every moment of tension, and every brilliant deduction will be brought to life here in rich, vivid, and extended detail. So sit back, relax, and let us journey into the peaceful lanes of Reigate, where murder hides behind respectability. The game is afoot. Opening scene: Holmes's recovery and the urgent summons. It was the spring of 1887. I, Dr. John H. Watson, had been deeply concerned about the health of my friend Sherlock Holmes. For weeks he had worked without rest on a series of complex and exhausting cases. His iron constitution had finally broken down under the strain. He was pale, thin, and suffering from severe nervous exhaustion. At my strong insistence, Holmes agreed to leave London for a period of complete rest. We traveled to a small but comfortable hotel near the village of Reigate in Surrey. The fresh air, peaceful countryside, and gentle spring sunshine began to restore his strength. For several days, Holmes seemed content to rest, walk in the fields, and enjoy the quiet beauty of the English countryside. One bright morning, while we were enjoying breakfast together, a telegram arrived. Holmes read it quickly, and I saw that familiar spark of excitement return to his sharp gray eyes. "Watson," he said with sudden energy, "we have work to do. There has been a murder at Reigate, actually two related crimes. Colonel Hayter, an old friend of mine from Afghanistan, has invited us to stay at his house and investigate. The local police are completely baffled. This promises to be most interesting." Despite my concern that he was not yet fully recovered, Holmes's enthusiasm was irresistible. We packed our bags immediately and drove to Colonel Hayter's house that very afternoon. Arrival at Reigate and the double crime. Colonel Hayter welcomed us warmly at his comfortable country home. He was a tall, soldierly man with a ruddy face and a straightforward manner. Over tea, he explained the shocking events that had disturbed the peaceful village. 2 nights earlier, the home of old Mr. Acton, a wealthy local landowner, had been burgled. The thieves had taken very little of value, but they had thoroughly ransacked the library and torn several legal documents. The very next night, William Kerwin, the coachman at the neighboring estate of the Cunninghams, was found murdered in the garden. He had been shot through the heart at close range. A young man had already been arrested on suspicion, but Colonel Hayter and several other local gentlemen were not convinced of his guilt. The case had created a great sensation in the quiet neighborhood. Holmes's eyes gleamed with interest as he listened to every detail. Holmes begins his investigation. Holmes immediately asked to visit both crime scenes. At the Acton house, he examined the library with minute care. He noted that although little had been stolen, many legal papers had been scattered and torn. At the scene of the murder in the Cunninghams' garden, Holmes studied the position of the body, the footprints in the soft earth, and every small detail. He picked up a small torn piece of paper from the ground near the body. On it were written the words, "At 11:45. Holmes's eyes sparkled with excitement. He carefully preserved the fragment and asked many sharp questions about the Cunninghams, the father and son who owned the estate where the coachman had been killed. That evening, back at Colonel Hayter's house, Holmes shared his initial thoughts with me. He believed the burglary at Acton's house and the murder of the coachman were closely connected. The torn piece of paper was part of a note arranging a secret meeting. The handwriting on the note was highly significant. The key deductions and the trap. The next day, Holmes visited the Cunninghams. While speaking with the father and son, he cleverly arranged a small distraction, a false fire alarm in the house. In the resulting confusion, he managed to examine a note that was in Mr. Cunningham's possession. He discovered that the handwriting on the torn fragment matched the handwriting of the son, Alec Cunningham. Holmes then made one of his most famous and elegant deductions. He asked the Cunninghams to show him the exact spot where the coachman had been shot. As they stood together in the garden, Holmes suddenly cried out and fell to the ground as if in a fit. In the confusion, he cleverly picked up another small piece of torn paper that completed the note. The full note read, "At 11:45, come to the East Gate. You will be richly rewarded." This proved beyond doubt that the coachman had been lured to the garden and murdered to silence him. The Cunninghams, father and son, were the real criminals. They had committed the burglary at Acton's house to steal a document that gave them legal claim over some disputed land. The coachman had witnessed the crime and had been blackmailing them. They killed him to keep him quiet. The dramatic arrest and resolution, Holmes confronted the Cunninghams with the complete evidence. The father, in desperation, tried to shoot Holmes, but Watson struck his arm, and the gun went off harmlessly. Both men were arrested and later convicted of the murder of William Kerwin and the burglary at Acton's house. The young man who had been wrongly suspected was released, and justice was served. Holmes explains his deductions back at Baker Street. Holmes explained every step of his brilliant reasoning to me with his characteristic clarity and satisfaction. The torn piece of paper was part of a note arranging a meeting between the coachman and the Cunninghams. The handwriting analysis proved the note was written by Alec Cunningham. The behavior of the Cunninghams, the position of the body, and the small details at both crime scenes all fitted perfectly into the larger picture. Closing narration, and so, dear listeners, ended the case of the adventure of the Reigate Squires. Sherlock Holmes, though still recovering from illness, demonstrated once again that no criminal can escape the power of logical deduction and careful observation. A torn piece of paper and a few footprints in the garden were enough to unravel a double crime. This adventure also showed Holmes's remarkable ability to recover quickly when a fascinating problem presented itself. Thank you for listening to this detailed and extended audiobook narration of the adventure of the Reigate Squires, the sixth story from the Memoirs of Sherlock Holmes. If you enjoyed it, please like, subscribe, share, and turn on notifications. The game is always afoot, and we shall return with more thrilling adventures of Sherlock Holmes very soon.